Trial of Sekhemas is really tough. When I tried to do it for my first ascendancy, I failed twice before finally succeeding. When I tried to do it for my third ascendancy, I was almost 10 levels over, and I still failed multiple times before finally succeeding. But since then, I've tested a bunch of stuff, and I've learned a bit more about how the mechanic works. And so, when I did my first attempt on my fourth ascendancy, I failed after getting to the boss. But everything up until that point was way easier than before. And so, I want to share some tips and tricks that I've learned that can help you make your experience in the trial of the Sekhemas easier. One thing to keep in mind about this, it doesn't necessarily mean it's free, it doesn't necessarily mean it's easy. Afflictions can still absolutely ruin your day. But at the very least, it does mean you'll have a higher chance of success than if you weren't doing these things. So, the first thing you can do to make things easier is increase your honor. You do this by scaling your character's health pool. So, for example, if you're a life-based build, you can add some strength, which gives additional life per point of strength you have, thus giving you more life, thus giving you more honor. On the other hand, you can play an energy shield build. On my current character, I have about 7,000 energy shield, which is going to give me a much bigger honor pool than a life-based character. However, because all of my defenses are invested into energy shield, while I do have that big pool, I don't have armor that would mitigate some of the damage that goes to honor. I don't have evasion that would give a chance to avoid damage going to honor. In other words, your character's defensive stats, armor, evasion, and energy shield, are also a relevant part of this formula. So, if you're struggling, fixing up a couple of problems in your build could very well help. But there's another character progression system that's exclusive to Trials of the Sekhemas, and this one is super impactful. That being your relics. You know, the thing that Balbala gave you one of, and told you this was important, and you promptly forgot about it because it's a tutorial and tutorials were boring. Okay, maybe that's just me. But the thing that really made the difference, and made my recent runs so much easier than the previous ones, was the fact that I started incorporating much better relics. And there's a few in particular that I found to be super impactful because of how they interact with honor. The first is relics that give you honor resistance. Honor resistance works somewhat like elemental resistance or chaos resistance, reducing the damage your honor takes. This is why all the damage you take when you first step into Trial of the Sekhemas feels so overwhelmingly oppressive, because you have no resistances, and when you get those resistances, it's not on gear, it's on your relics. Even just going from 0% honor resistance all the way up to 75 by buying some cheap honor resistance relics is going to make a world of difference. But things get even better from there, because relics don't just have honor resistance as a stat. They also have maximum honor resistance. So think about it this way. With 0% honor resistance, if a hit would do 1,000 honor damage, that's pretty bad. When you go up to 75% honor resistance, all of a sudden, it's doing 250. Still bad, but not nearly as bad. Whereas if you were able to get all the way up to what I'm assuming is the cap of 90% max, admittedly, I am not 100% sure on that. If anyone knows for sure what the maximum cap is, please do let me know down below. That would be a mere 100 damage or 10% of a total. Now, you only get this on 4x1s, 1x4s, and 2x2s. So it's not very easy to actually get 3 relics with plus 5% to maximum honor. But even throwing in just one of them, then getting honor resistance and other stats on the rest of your relics is going to make a massive difference and make this much easier. And again, even just using any relics to cap your honor resistance to begin with is going to make it so much easier. Remember, you're going from 1,000 damage in the theoretical down to a mere 250, so you can take 4 times as many hits before you fail the trial. In addition, you can look for increased maximum life, at least if you're a life-based build. This will help to scale your defenses not only against regular damage, but against honor damage, since remember, your honor scales with your maximum life. Or maybe you're not a life build, or maybe scaling life just doesn't feel that impactful. Then you can scale things directly with increased maximum honor. You could also restore honor as you complete objectives within the Trial of the Sekhemas, or increase the amount of honor that's restored when restoration does occur. These are all ways in which you can use relics to make your run far easier. Beyond that, you could take boons to give yourself even more bonuses. Something like movement speed, you're going to go away faster, and that helps you to avoid traps or helps you to avoid enemy attacks. You might get a boon that reduces enemy health, so you can kill them much more quickly, and dead enemies are at least less likely to damage your honor. Just watch for some of those explosive on-death effects. Or you could get something that boosts your maximum honor. Just watch out, because there's also an affliction that lowers your maximum honor. So, to give you an idea of just how impactful this is, the first time I entered Trial of the Sekhemas 3, I had 1,500 honor, which isn't that much. This was just based off of my life, not counting any armor, evasion, or energy shield, because at the time I didn't really have any of those. So the first change I made was adding some energy shield to my build. I went from 1,500 life to 1,500 life and around 1,600 energy shield. All of a sudden, my honor doubled. In other words, I could take twice the number of hits and still survive. This was also when I started working on defenses even more, and working in things like honor resistance. So instead of taking twice the number of hits, now I could take 8 times the number of hits. Then, as my build kept scaling, by attempt number 3, I had 4.5k energy shield. I had the full honor resistance, leading to about 7,000 honor during the trial. And since then, I've continued to improve my build, and now I have about 14,000 honor, which again, that's about 40 times the original value. In other words, it is incredibly worth it to not only invest into your character defenses, but also invest into honor resistance to give yourself the best possible chance of succeeding at the Trial of the Sekhemas. Alright, so in addition to all that, yes, relics are hugely important, but I have learned a few things going through my various runs. The first of which is, on floor 3, there are some traps, a little symbol on the floor that often makes a poison cloud. This is extremely, extremely lethal, and it will eat through your honor almost instantaneously. So, some of these traps you will have to stand on to trigger a mechanism in a gauntlet trial. If you don't have to stand on the trap, do your best to avoid ever touching it, because it is so deadly. I actually bricked a run because I stood on it, and the poison instantly ate through my entire honor bar. Now that I have Chaos Inoculation, I am a little bit curious if I'm just immune, but I haven't tested that because I've been a little scared even with the 14,000 honor. Something else I've noticed is certain rare enemies can just ruin your day. Either they counter your specific build, let's just say a temporal bubble if you have to get close to them, or they simply do a ton of damage to anything around them. Unfortunately, if you're in a chalice trial, you need to confront these rare and dangerous enemies. But if you are not in a chalice trial, sometimes it really is better to use a mechanic like Frostwall to push them away from you and simply run past. For me, Frostwall is a part of my build. But even if it isn't a part of yours, provided you have enough intelligence to use it, maybe use a low-level gem, you can always throw the walls up, give them a little bit increased health so enemies struggle to break them, and use them to wall enemies off and keep them away from you as you're just rushing past. I found this to be particularly useful in both the escape and the gauntlet trials, where a lot of enemies I simply wouldn't have to kill. I could wall them, run past, and worry about them later, or maybe never. And in terms of a deal with it later, maybe never, don't worry, you have plenty of other options. For example, if you stun an enemy, maybe you want to finish them off, or maybe you just want to run past, because if you complete the trial and move on to the next room, you won't really have to worry about that ending anymore. Though if they're really near the gate, I have noticed sometimes they follow you in, so it might be better to just kill them, especially if they're a ranged or caster enemy. But okay, maybe you can't stun, or maybe stun buildup isn't your thing. Don't worry, there's plenty of other options. You're dealing cold damage? Well, just freeze them solid. Or you're dealing lightning damage? It might be time to start electrocuting them. Some builds will have access to all 3 of these, some builds will only have access to one of these, i.e. the stun. And other builds may struggle because they can't integrate any of these and really do need to rely on something like a low-level Frostwall. You'll just have to experiment with this for yourself and see what ends up working for your build. Third up, vision is really, really, really important. Do not ever take an affliction that reduces the number of rooms you can see ahead, and always try to get boons that increase the number of rooms you can see ahead. The reason this is so powerful is because it's better for planning your route to avoid dangerous afflictions. If the room you go into only has one exit, and you don't know what that exit is, you could end up forcing yourself to take a really bad affliction. But if you know that exit leads to only one room, and that room has a really bad affliction, you can go around entirely, maybe taking a different affliction that you didn't really want to get, but isn't about to end your run. Unfortunately, it's not like you're going to get the vision every single time, but you should aim for it wherever possible. And also, if you do happen to get the affliction that lowers your vision, look out for a pledge to Kochai so that you can hopefully drop it and continue your run a little bit more safely. Then, last up, practice, practice, practice. You may not complete the Trial of the Sekhemas on your first attempt. With the initial key, you get infinite tries. You can just keep going and keep going. With subsequent attempts, it will require a new key each time. And I'm going to be honest, when I failed my third one multiple times in a row, I was feeling pretty demoralized. I was like, God damn, this is hard. This isn't fun. But I'm also glad that I did stick with it, because if I hadn't stuck with it, if I'd, say, just gone to Trial of Chaos, I wouldn't have learned all of these mechanics around honor, and I wouldn't have learned all the things that I could do to make my subsequent runs easier. So now I think I'm going to get my 4th ascendancy from the Trial of the Sekhemas. And while I did fail against the boss, I know what I did wrong. My build didn't have enough damage, and my mana sustain sucked because I had been lazy about my flask. The second one is very much a me problem. The first one is because, well, I did it as soon as it was available, rather than actually going in prepared. So my plan is to adjust a few things on my build, try to get a little more damage, maybe even a few more bits of defense for even more honor, and then give it another shot. So if you want to know how that goes, or you want to know what to do on that boss, I'm definitely going to be making a video with my experiences as I complete my 4th ascendancy. Do be sure to get subscribed for that, and ring the notification bell to see all future uploads. Oh, and hey, you made it to the end of the video, you probably enjoyed, so why not leave a like while you're down there, because it really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm, and that means I'm going to be able to make more videos just like this one. But those are my experiences with Trial of the Sekhemas, and what I did to make things much, much easier. If you're still struggling, then maybe check out my previous video, or an excellent guide written by Ziggy D over on Maxwell that covers Trials of Ascendancy. With that said, I am curious, if you've also had a good time in Trials of the Sekhemas, what are some of your tips and tricks that can help other people succeed? Be sure to leave them down in the comments below. For now, I'm going to get back to mapping because I want to farm a little bit more money, upgrade my gear, and take on that boss again. I don't know if I'll succeed. Might take me one more try, might take me 3 more tries, but at the very least, it definitely feels achievable. Of course, I'm saying this before having experienced the fight's second phase, and that could ultimately end up being a little soul-crushing. I guess I'll just have to see when I get there. For now, thanks for watching, glad you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.